Hello, welcome to the Vertical Drop Viking. I'm Josef. Last fall, I made a video about the 10 biggest roller coaster failures of all time. These were instances where amusement parks spent millions of dollars to design and build a new attraction with the intent of getting their money back and then some, but through some combination of poor planning, substandard construction, or bad luck, those 10 coasters ended up becoming bottomless money pits. I'll put a link to that original video at the end of this one in case you haven't seen it. But while I was researching that video, there were several other coasters that I either intentionally left off the list for one reason or another, or I simply missed altogether. Thankfully, the comment section came through with 10 more great entries, so I figured I'd put together another list and make sure that the comment section's voice is represented. Let me know in the comments if there's anything I missed that you'd like to see covered in a future episode, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so that those future videos don't slip away into obscurity. At number 10, we have the Deja Vu Giant Inverted Boomerangs. This one was sent in by @CommonwealthEdison2640. Now, this model was introduced by Vekoma in 2001, with 6 constructed in total. The first 3 installations were at Six Flags parks, Magic Mountain, Over Georgia, and Great America, all under the name Deja Vu. In spite of the coasters being slated to open with their respective parks at the beginning of the 2001 season, all 3 of these rides were plagued with malfunctions and error codes that delayed each of their openings to late August, early September, and mid-October, respectively. A 4th one was purchased at the same time, but the disastrous debuts of the first 3 delayed its construction in Madrid until the following year. All 3 of these original giant boomerangs were torn down after only 6 years of spotty operations, with their components being packed up and shipped to other parks. Six Flags Magic Mountain's Deja Vu was transferred to Six Flags New England, where it reopened as Goliath and operated for 7 more years. The Deja Vu at Six Flags Great America was sold outside of the company to Silverwood Theme Park in Idaho, who still operates the ride to this day. Six Flags Over Georgia's installation of Deja Vu was sold to Mirabiland in Brazil, where the ride remained chopped up in storage for over 15 years before the park closed in the beginning of 2025. 2 more were constructed in China in 2011 and 2014, and we can assume that those will run until 2031 and 2034 respectively, due to China's 20-year rule. Only the one in Madrid, the one in Idaho, and the 2 in China still operate today. At an average price of over $5 million per installation, this model has proven to be a costly mistake for over half of the parks that it was built in. At number 9, we have the Aero Pipeline Coaster. This one was sent in by Screamin' Geek Media. In 1986, the Japanese company Togo debuted an entirely new style of roller coaster at Tokyo Dome City Park in Tokyo. This coaster, the Ultra Twister model, has its ride vehicle situated between the rails rather than on top of them as with the traditional roller coaster. Togo's version featured a near vertical lift hill, numerous heartline rolls, and a switch track at the far end of the layout to send riders backwards through the second half of the ride. Notably, these coasters were unable to perform turns on the yaw axis due to their position in between the tracks. Rolling turns were possible, but Togo declined to incorporate them into the ride, instead keeping the coaster's footprint a straight line out and back. After they successfully installed 3 of them in Japan, the U.S. company Aero smelled money and began developing their own version of the Ultra Twister under the watchful eye of their engineering guru, Ron Toomer. It was called the Pipeline Coaster, not to be confused with B&M's new Pipeline Surf Coaster. Development on the Pipeline Coaster began in the mid-'80s, and by 1988, construction began on the prototype test track at their headquarters in Utah. Aero spent an undisclosed amount of money designing, developing, and constructing this prototype, which was finished in 1989. Unlike the original Togo model, Aero's Pipeline Coaster did include rolling turns, as well as a dive loop and a unique heart-lining Immelman roll. The first test runs took place in 1990, and Aero began spending money advertising the ride to parks. They even ran a feature on the ride in their newsletter, Directions, in 1990, claiming that the ride would be available at parks and ready to ride by 1992. The lead ride designer of Alton Towers, John Wardley, worked with Arrow in 1990 to try and bring one overseas to the UK, but he changed his mind after riding the prototype and went on to build Nemesis with B&M instead. Arrow showcased the ride vehicle at the IAAPA conference for several years in a row and teased that a U.S. park had already purchased one. Rumor has it that the park was Maury's Piers in Wildwood, New Jersey, but some believe it was Cedar Point who was interested, which also makes sense considering the love affair that Cedar Point was having with Arrow during the 70s and 80s. Regardless of which park was interested in the ride, it never ended up going past the prototype stage, and any plans to construct the coaster were scrapped, apparently due to the unique restraint system that Arrow had developed to accommodate the insane amounts of hang time that the ride provided. It seems that while the restraint system generally worked, it was either unsafe or uncomfortable for riders that were larger or smaller than average. Arrow kept working at the design through the 1990s, even after the hype of their initial announcement died down, but failed to complete the project before their bankruptcy and subsequent purchase by S&S. As the coaster was never built past the prototype stage, it's hard to say exactly how much money Arrow spent on this folly. But considering all the attention they tried to draw to it, we can assume it wasn't cheap, and it's certainly an embarrassing section of Arrow's history. At number 8, we have Buzzsaw Falls at Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. While some claim this ride is still technically operating today, its journey from inception to the present has proven to be a series of expensive decisions for this Herschend-owned park. Announced in 1998 and slated to open in May of 1999, this ride was originally designed and constructed by the Maryland-based Premier Rides. This was a hybrid roller coaster/log flume ride with a chain lift hill, one of only 2 chain lift hills that Premier Ride ever built, leading directly into a drop into a splashdown and water channel. Due to significant mechanical issues, the coaster failed to open on the scheduled date of May 16th, and was delayed while these flaws were found and fixed. The ride opened on July 3rd of 1999 and was fairly popular during the hot Missouri summers, but proved to be a mechanical nightmare to maintain. Among other things, the infrared sensors that Premier used to keep track of the ride vehicles was touchy, would give false readings, and they were subject to interference. In addition to this, the ride didn't operate on a track during the log flume portion of the ride, meaning that the ride could only operate or even be tested when the park was actively paying to pump thousands of gallons of water through the channel per hour. After spending $7 million to build the ride in the first place, Silver Dollar City was only able to keep the ride running for the remainder of the 1999 season and the following 2 years, spending an untold amount of money in the process. In 2003, the ride closed down permanently, and most of the structure was torn down over the following year. The lift hill and station were reused by S&S to build Powder Keg, a pneumatically launched roller coaster that still operates today. The conversion from Buzzsaw Falls to Powder Keg cost the park an additional $10 million. At number 7, we have Red Devil or Cliffhanger at Ghost Town in the Sky. This one was sent in by General Parrish 9818. This little-known steel coaster was the third produced by O.D. Hopkins, a relatively unknown manufacturer whose main claim to fame was producing knockoff log flumes to compete with Arrow. Being a smaller name meant that the ride had a smaller price tag, which was very attractive to Ghost Town Village, a privately owned amusement park that was situated inexplicably on the top of an old mountain in the Carolina Smokies. Construction began in April of 1988, and the Red Devil opened in September of the same year. However, by all accounts, the park completely dropped the ball on performing routine maintenance, not only on this ride, but on all the rides in the park. Not to mention the convoluted transportation systems between the parking lot and the park itself. It was on top of a mountain, after all. Public consensus by the late 90s was that Ghost Town Village was not worth visiting, and reportedly, locals would tell visitors not to bother. The park closed in 2002, and all the rides closed with it. When the park reopened in 2007, the Red Devil had been renamed Cliffhanger, and was one of the primary advertising hooks presented to the public by the new owners. In spite of this, the ride would not open with the park, and would instead cost the new owners $6 million in refurbishments and repairs over the duration of their ownership of the park. They declared bankruptcy before they could even get Cliffhanger open, and the park barely survived closing permanently. When the park opened up once again in June of 2009, they managed to get the ride running, but 2 days later, inspectors found a hairline fracture in the frame of the new trains, It remained closed until October of that same year, where it operated for 3 more days before closing down again, this time for good. Since that time, the park itself has begun to slide down the mountain, and the chances of Ghost Town in the Sky and its cursed cliffhanger coaster ever opening again slid down the mountain with it. At number 6 is The Bat at Kings Island. Now, this is the second suggestion of the video by Screamin' Geek Media. He's got his own channel about collecting movies, so if you're into physical media, make sure you check Screamin' Geek Media out. I'll put a link to his channel in the description. Now, this is a famous one, and I only left it off my original list because of its enormous impact on the rest of the industry. Arrow's prototype suspended coaster was shown to Kings Island executives in 1978, and they contracted Arrow to make them one of their own. It took 18 months of development and 2 more years to manufacture and construct the ride, which opened in 1981 as the Bat. This is the first roller coaster where the ride vehicles are suspended from the bottom of the track, since the Germans had attempted it in 1975 with Alpenflug. And sadly, Arrow must not have had a chance to check the Germans' notes, because the Bat was plagued with the same problems as Alpenflug was. The ride vehicles swung from a pivoting arm suspended from the tubular steel track, but the ride vehicles were quite heavy, and the track itself was mostly unbanked. The engineers must have figured that the need for banked turns was obviated by the pivoting arm, as the riders would not feel any lateral stress as they swing outwards on each turn. While that much was true, the ride structure itself did not feel the same way about this lateral stress, and within 3 years of opening, the Bat closed forever. Operations were inconsistent during those 3 years, as maintenance crews fought a losing battle, trying to keep the ride together as it ripped itself apart more and more with each ride cycle. Kings Island spent $3.8 million on the ride in 1981, the equivalent of $13.5 million in today's money. While Arrow Hoofs, and then Aerodynamics, would go on to learn from this failure and install a total of 9 more suspended coasters around the world, including a replacement for the Bat at Kings Island in 1993 that was originally themed to the movie Top Gun. There's little doubt in the community that the original Bat is one of the most ignominious failures in roller coaster history. At number 5, we have Tsunami, or Zonga, or Texas Tornado. This was sent in by one of my top commenters, at Cycader2000. Now, this Schwarzkopf multi-looper was first spotted in Germany all the way back in 1986, and it spent the first 11 years of its operating life as a traveling fair ride called Tsunami. It spent 1 year at Gronelund Park as Thriller, before returning to the traveling circuit as Tsunami for 1 more year. After operating at a winter festival in 1997, it was sold to Six Flags and shipped off to Houston, Texas. It opened at Six Flags Astro World in 1998, where it operated for 3 seasons as Texas Tornado, but it broke down any time it got too hot. Now, this might not be a big problem at Canada's Wonderland or Cedar Point, but a roller coaster that won't operate in the heat in Houston, Texas, qualifies as an actual disaster. After closing at the end of the 2000 season, it stood non-operational for the entire 2001 season, until finally being chopped down and put into storage in 2002. The next year, it was pulled out of storage and shipped to Northern California, where Six Flags hoped the milder weather would ease the operational struggles that the ride encountered in the heat. It did not. Now dubbed Zonga, which sounds like a nonsense word, but actually means loops in Swahili. The ride continued to be plagued with malfunctions and downtime, in spite of some drastic track modifications that saw its vertical loops raised higher off the ground to limit the speed and positive G's that they exerted on riders. The ride ran spottily for the 2003 and 2004 seasons, before standing dormant once again for the entirety of 2005. By 2006, it was visible as a pile of track in the parking lot of Discovery Kingdom, after having paid to buy the coaster from the traveling fairs, paid to ship it over from Germany, paid to install it in Texas, paid to keep it running in the heat, paid to tear it down and ship it to California, build it again, paid to keep it running without the heat, and paid one last time to tear it back down. Six Flags finally threw in the towel on this ride. They sold it to a municipal government in north-central Mexico in 2008, where it regained its original name of Tsunami, and operated for 5 years before standing dormant one long last time. It was dismantled in 2016. At number 4, we have Flashback at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This one was sent in by @JohnHenderson and @MrEliasdl. This coaster first opened as Z-Force at Great America in Gurnee, Illinois, way back in 1985. Although it was designed by Intamin, the coaster's design and manufacture were subcontracted to Giovanola. Their lead designers on this project, Walter Bolliger and Claude Mabillard, would go on to found a company that would prove to be Intamin's greatest competitor in the decades to follow. And Bolliger and Mabillard's fingerprints are all over this coaster prototype. This is one of only 2 Intamin rides to feature the box beam style track, 4 across trains that have become known as B&M's signature design elements. In spite of the involvement of these 2 future industry titans, this ride was a complete and total failure. The concept itself was questionable. Hairpin drop after hairpin drop after hairpin drop, with speed building up the entire time, and bulky over-the-shoulder restraints ensuring that each hairpin drop was the equivalent of being swung diagonally at the floor, head first. Riders universally lambasted the ride as painful, and it was torn down 2 years after opening and shipped to Georgia, where it operated for an additional 3 seasons, 1988 to 1991. Tragically, it was the cause of a mysterious and unexplained fatality during the 1989 season, claiming the life of an 11-year-old boy from Alabama. This wasn't enough to close the ride permanently, but it didn't help its already negative public image. It was torn down after the 1991 season and relocated to Six Flags Magic Mountain in California. Renamed from Z-Force to Flashback, it operated for the 1992 season to critical disdain. The, quote, classic head basher was lambasted by the public and commonly referred to as the most uncomfortable ride in the park. During the 1995 season, Six Flags opened a water park adjacent to Magic Mountain that butted up right against Flashback. This coaster was reportedly so loud that lifeguards could not do their job at the water park while the ride was running. So the 1996 season saw it closed if the water park was open, which equates to 5 months out of the year in the Southern California sun. It followed this spotty seasonal operation schedule from 1996 until 2003, and then it stood completely dormant for 4 years before being unceremoniously torn down. At number 3, we have the Kid Flash Cosmic Coaster. This one was sent in by @RainbowDemon and @EDTZE3KE. Now, I considered this one for the first video, but I didn't want to pile on the Skyline attractions too hard. In retrospect, they clearly deserve it. Unlike the Harley Quinn Crazy Coaster that featured in the last video, this Kid Coaster was actually a roller coaster with a booster wheel launch, and it had some cool features on paper. 2 single-rail tracks designed to dispatch together and race each other through the twisting spaghetti bowl layout, which ducks and weaves over and under itself with quick, snappy airtime hills, and a unique animated graphic on the top face and side faces of the rails, facilitated by hundreds of LED screens. They advertised this as the world's first single-rail family racing coaster. They also touted a new construction method that used rivets instead of welds. Now, to many, this sounded too good to be true right off the rip. 2 installations of the ride were installed and opened within 1 day of each other at Six Flags Over Georgia and Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. They operated for 2 seasons before they were shut down with absolutely no fanfare. The local press in each area had to reach out and ask, and Six Flags responded to the press with a boilerplate email in both cases, revealing little to no real information. Now, anyone who's worked with metal before, or even worked with, say, a canvas banner, can tell you that rivets punch away material from their base parts, which weakens them permanently. On top of that, rivets can be made to be vibration resistant, but there's no such thing as a rivet that's vibration proof. Every time the trains roll over the track, those rivets have to flex and bend to some degree, even if it's on a microscopic level. The prevailing theory about these coasters is that they were rapidly shaking themselves apart. While the park has not been forthcoming with information about the closure of these coasters, the online community captured a video of the yellow train completely derailed from the track, a disaster which thankfully appears to have not caused any injuries. While the coasters were reportedly some of the cheaper failures on this list at just under $1 million apiece, $2 million is a lot of money to spend on 2 rides that need to be torn down after 2 seasons. Not to mention all the money that went into trying to keep them alive and all the money that went into tearing them down. At number 2, we have Gozimba at Serengeti Park, Hodenhagen. This one was sent in by at Nobody is Perfect, US 6PK. Now, this is the only entry on the list whose park still insists that it's going to open. Gozimba is the 7th coaster built by the relatively unknown Ride Engineers of Switzerland, or RESAG, a company who has made 1 water splashdown coaster and 5 rollerball-style coasters, like the Coaster Ball from RCT3. It was announced by Serengeti Park in Hodenhagen, Germany in March of 2022, and was slated to open that same year. The concept was a powered, inverted coaster with rider-controlled sails like a Gerstlauer Skyfly flat ride that allows the riders to spin their cars or hold them straight. Delays and complications caused construction to not even begin until the spring of 2023. While the track was finished in May of 2023, the components needed to make its powered trains move, as well as the trains themselves, had yet to materialize. The trains finally arrived in early 2024, but the ride wasn't tested until August of that year. Those tests did not go well. They announced that the ride wouldn't open until April of 2025. In July of 2025, the ride was undergoing tests when it discovered that the wheel assemblies were failing already. The park posted online, publicly, that the, quote, manufacturer of the ride is in hiding. 8 days later, RESAG sent out a press release saying that while they designed the ride, they were not the manufacturer, and that the park had outsourced the manufacturing process of the ride to a third, as of yet unnamed company. RES essentially said, "We offered them solutions to these problems before they arose, but the park said that those solutions were too expensive, and now they've tasked us with coming up with cheaper solutions." The same day, the park put out a press release that legitimately asked the public for donations to fix their ride that they had never rode. As of right now, it's slated to open with the park for the 2026 season. I personally won't hold my breath. And at number 1, we have the mock rides that are in storage at Real Madrid World in the United Arab Emirates. This one was also sent in by Nobody is Perfect, US 6PK. Real Madrid World is one of these small, weird parks that popped up in Dubai in the mid-2010s, during the post-Burj Khalifa era of their luxury real estate boom, back when Dubai was the topic of every front-page YouTube video. They were called Bollywood Parks Dubai at the time, and operated as a theme park dedicated to, well, Bollywood, the eponymous Indian cinematic industry. It appears like the first several years of this park were very show-focused, but after some time, they opened a series of flat rides and a Zamperla kid coaster. Now, at this point, they also purchased 2 full-size roller coasters from Mock Rides, but the track was spotted stacked in the back of the park afterwards, and it hasn't moved since. It's clearly the track for 2 different rides. Rumor has it that it's a hyper coaster and a splashdown coaster, but the park itself closed in April of 2023 with the track still stacked neatly in the corner of the property. 7 months later, it was announced that a new owner had taken over the park, and it was going to re-theme to the Real Madrid soccer team and reopen in early 2024. The park made good on this promise and opened in April of 2024, and with it, a brand new coaster. But that brand new coaster was a 110-foot GCI wooden coaster called Hala Madrid, which is Arabic for Hello Madrid. Why they invested in a whole new roller coaster rather than building the hyper coaster they already owned is a matter of great speculation. My guess is that they either couldn't get the right permits from the Dubai government for the 200-foot coaster, or that the cost to actually build the ride was more than the park was willing to pay. Hyperia at Thorpe Park, which is a similar ride by the same manufacturer, reportedly cost 22 million USD to manufacture and construct. And who knows what that would cost in a competitive construction and real estate market like Dubai's. Either way, being stuck sitting on tens of millions of dollars worth of roller coaster track means Real Madrid World's unnamed mock rides are the biggest fail of the bunch today. So that's it. That was your list of the top roller coaster failures of all time. I'll put a link to the original video up above right here, and you can let me know down below if there's another one that I missed. If I get enough suggestions that aren't in either video, I'll happily make a part 3 for you guys. I needed something else to yap about anyways. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, the like button is the best way to let me know, and the subscribe button is the best way to see more content like this. I appreciate you sticking with me till the end. I have been Josef. I'll see you in the next one. Vertical Drop Viking out.